Welcome back to the Vandy Sports Podcast here at First Bank Stadium alongside Joey Dwyer. I'm Billy Derrick, and we're here for last-minute thoughts ahead of rivalry weekend, Vanderbilt and Tennessee. Joey, I don't think, in all my lifetime covering and following Vanderbilt, I don't think there's ever been a Vandy-Tennessee game with this much hype and anticipation. But it's not just because of Tennessee. Obviously the motivation is to knock Tennessee out of playoff contention. But for Vanderbilt, get to the seventh win and prove that you can take that next step like we've been talking about. Or do you kind of falter down the stretch and lose today in the bowl game? Whatever happens in the bowl game. But I think a seventh win today, taking Tennessee out of the equation, we'll get into that. But just a seventh win today for Vanderbilt would I think really cement what they did this year and kind of put a stamp on it and say, yeah, this was a really good year, and it's really something to be proud of. It's still something to be proud of, but a seventh win, no matter who you're playing today, would be huge.
Yeah, it alters perception of the season, right? You look at it and say, well, they lost their last three, and they're playing their worst football down the stretch. That's way different than you go and beat your rival on the last week of the season, and then it looks a little bit more clean when you look at the rest of the games, right? The one-score game against LSU looks a lot better at that point. And I think everything looks better, and Billy, today is the day for Vanderbilt football, right? It hasn't been successful in the last couple of years. I think it's lost 5 straight in this rivalry, but this is why you go to fall camp every day. This is why you get up at 8 a.m. those days and you go out in the hot sun. This is why you go through the summer program. Today is the day, right? This is the day for Vanderbilt football, and I think the stakes are raised, right? Tennessee, a team that could get in the playoffs. This is a real perfect spot for Vanderbilt, right? Obviously, it's not in playoff contention like it was hoping to be, but you look at it and say you can knock your biggest rival out of playoff contention. You can go and cement your season and show that everything that you did throughout the year was not a fluke, and you can go beat a team like this. I think a lot of the talk, even from us, has been, this Vanderbilt offense has been figured out. I don't know if they have enough left in the tank. What if they go and prove us wrong today, Billy? I think that would be a huge kind of cementing point to the season where everybody's counted them out all year. It feels like they're finally being counted out again, and maybe they can go do it again.
Yeah, this is what both teams want at the end of the season. For Tennessee, you want a chance to go to Nashville and beat Vanderbilt to get into the playoff, and if you're Vanderbilt, you want a chance to knock them out of the playoff. This, like you said, this is exactly what both teams want. There's pressure on Tennessee today. There's zero pressure on Vanderbilt. There's
all with house money.
Yeah, really all the pressure in the world is on Tennessee, and if you're Clark Lee and Vanderbilt, I don't think the message is, hey, all the pressure's on them, but it's let's do our job, let's play to our formula, and if they do, I think they win. But that formula is like that can be a big if, and it has been a big if all year. It was a big if heading into Virginia Tech. Same thing with Alabama. Really every week, barring maybe Alcorn State.
Yeah.
But even Ball State, they had to play to their identity. They had to play to their formula. They did. They have to today, but that formula, and it hasn't changed. I think it's take care of the football, convert on third downs, but get to 3rd and 6 instead of, they've been on way too many 3rd and longs.
Yeah.
And I really do think that's probably the biggest key offensively. And then defensively, Joe, you've got to force a couple of turnovers, I think. I don't even know that just one turnover is going to do it.
Right.
And they could force a couple of turnovers, but I think the turnovers have to be either a pick six like Brandon Fontenette had against Alabama, or a fumble that puts your offense in the red zone, like they did against South Carolina, but they turned it right back over. You can't have that either. So, you have to win the turnover margin, but the margin is still very small, and I think it's even smaller at this point in the season than it was heading into that Alabama game. Again, it is about Pavia, but it's also about the rest of the team. I think this defense has a golden opportunity today to win the game, I think. If they force the turnovers that they can, and the offense does something with it, I think they've got a shot. But again, that's a tough needle to that's a tough needle to thread sometimes.
Yeah, I guess if you're looking at it from an optimistic point of view, there is a young quarterback on the other side that hasn't been awesome in road environments, and maybe gotten a chance to maybe force some turnovers in that way. I think Tennessee's run game is really going to be a problem for Vanderbilt, and that's something I look at as a real detriment to Vanderbilt's case to win this game. I think it's got to be a little more perfect offensively because of what Tennessee can do on the ground, but kind of just going back to setting the stage, this reminds me of how it felt going into some of Vanderbilt's earlier games where they hadn't proven it yet. They were the underdogs and the team that nobody was watching. People were watching this game for the other team. For the first time in a couple of weeks, it kind of feels like Vanderbilt is that
back
team
to that.
again,
Yeah.
right? It's the underdog that nobody's really paying attention to. I think this game does matter because of Vanderbilt too. If Vanderbilt's 2-10, nobody would really worry about this game. But
Right.
I also think people are watching this game for Tennessee and see what they can do, kind of like Virginia Tech, kind of like Alabama, things along those lines.
Right.
And Vanderbilt's used to that role, so
Yeah.
I just wonder kind of how it embraces that role heading into the day, because it's been there before and really seemed to like that spot.
That is a good point. It does feel like they're back to that. You know, not many people picking Vandy today. You know, I mean, like if we expect, you know, if it actually happens what we expect to happen, Vanderbilt's not going to win today. But I think even going back to LSU, I thought there was a shot. And even, you know, Auburn, we thought there was a shot, and a lot of other games. But this week, it does feel like they're back to the underdog role. And again, I go back to, I don't think they have to play perfect, but even one mistake, even one big mistake on offense can really set you back. And I think if they get down by 2 scores early, I don't know. They have to keep it close all the way to the fourth quarter. I just don't see them being able to come back like they did against Georgia State late. And even
this is a different team than Georgia State,
right? But they're not as explosive either on offense. You know, Texas, we thought they were out of that in the first half. That looked like a blowout, and so I think they can make those second half adjustments. But just the way they're playing right now, Joey, offensively, and we've been saying this for the last couple months, really. Is there anything else, you know, that this offense can do? And I think a big question, I was asked this, you know, we were on a lot of, you know, different Tennessee shows, podcasts and stuff, and a lot of the questions, at least for me, was, do we see Nate Johnson today? And I think that's really interesting. You know, we have a little bit, and I think we should. I mean, I you know, just the way that offense has been playing, I don't know that we will, but that's one of your more explosive offensive weapons, and if you don't, are you giving yourself the best chance to win? You know, and so I think that's interesting. But what's also interesting is the special teams perspective here. Boo Carter is very explosive for Tennessee. If he gets loose, that's not a good formula for Vanderbilt. But you also got Martell Hyde for Vanderbilt, great punt returner. So I think the punt coverage, kickoff coverage, this seems stupid talking about, but I think that's really big today. I think Tennessee feels like they could have an advantage there. So Vanderbilt, I think special teams is huge today, and unlike a lot of other weeks, that it's very huge this week.
Yeah, I look at it and say today is about the little things, like special teams, like forcing the turnovers, right, taking care of the ball. It's about those things this week, and we've heard that a lot from Clark Lee over the years, but today I think their margin for error is small. It's cold. You're not going to be able to throw it probably the way you would like. Obviously, Diego Pauli's played some in the cold, but probably not as much as some other guys. Nico obviously hasn't either, so I'm interested to see kind of how much the ball moves through the air throughout the day. I think it's going to get a little warmer, but look at us right now. We look like wimps. You would think it's 5 degrees out based off the way we're dressed, but I do think that'll have some effect on the game, and I think in some ways that probably does favor Tennessee because the way it's able to move the ball on the ground. Vanderbilt's got to get back to being able to do that. Cedric Alexander really hasn't been productive over the last couple weeks. AJ Newberry's not going to play today. They're going to have to find a way to move the ball on the ground, and I think maybe you see more Monty Jones. You see maybe some wrinkles with Nate Johnson. I wonder if that is something they turn to. I think you got to keep Javi on the field, but I wonder if Nate Johnson's factored in some other ways. I think they are more open to it based off kind of what Clark Lee said this week than they have been, just because of Javi's health. He is really banged up. And Billy, before we get off, let's reference Senior Day. I think this is a senior class that has done a lot for this program, especially Diego Pavia and a lot of the transfers. I think I'm going to write about it in a week or two, but this is a transfer class that has completely transformed the outlook of Vanderbilt football, and I think today it would be a heck of a way to send them out if you go and beat Tennessee, and I wouldn't put it past that group, but certainly going to be difficult. Like we've mentioned, Tennessee seems to have every logical advantage, but a lot of the year, every logical advantage has not mattered to Vanderbilt. They've found a way to overcome it, and let's see if that group can do it one more time.
Yeah, the seniors, that's a good point. You know, they have to really play well, specifically the transfer seniors, the older guys. The offensive line has to be at their best today. You know, if they're not clicking and if they're not, you know, jumping off the ball, they've got no shot. You know, they have to keep Pavia as clean as they can, but also Vanderbilt has to get some pass rush.
Yeah.
I mean, Garrett Nussmeier, I don't think he hit the ground once. You know, and you have to make Nico uncomfortable and make him hesitate. You know, if he's comfortable, again, that's not part of the formula. And you know, I know Sidner maybe hasn't been at his best. You know, Capers hasn't been forcing the strip sacks and the turnovers that he did in those big games. You need a strip sack like that, and Vanderbilt's just gotta play with that underdog mentality. I think they will. I think it's gonna be a close competitive game, but does Tennessee play with enough edge that they should today? Because they've got way more motivation than Vanderbilt, I think.
Oddly enough, teams seem to overlook games like this.
Right, and they're well coached. Josh Heupel is a very, very good coach, and I'm interested to see what their plan is offensively. I think Tennessee's tight ends are going to be huge today, but so are Vanderbilt's. Like Stowers and Spence have to do some things. They have to do more than they did last week, and so there's a lot in that formula for Vanderbilt today. But we'll see if they're able to get it done. Tennessee and Vandy at 11 a.m. on ABC. Big spotlight for Vanderbilt and a lot of pressure on Tennessee, and we'll see what happens today. Again, we'll have all your coverage. We'll have a post-game report, maybe minus a mic, but we'll be okay. We'll just yell into the phone. But that's Joey. I'm Billy. Thanks again, and we'll see you a little bit later for the post-game report.